Good morning. As it turns out, it looks like we've got some alternate Fridays at work here, so small group, but I'm delighted to have everyone here. So I'll ask the same question I always ask. What's the very first thing we really need to learn how to do if we want to make Denver water better? Bob? To keep getting better. What do we have to learn how to do? We have to learn how to see waste first. It's the very first thing we have to do. We have to learn how to see it. And this event really focuses on this because for a long time, the way we have done things, it hasn't occurred to us because of the environment we're in that we should be doing something different. Even though we have policies and procedures that say different things, this is the way we've done it. So it's hard to see the things that we're not doing that we should be doing, or seeing waste that is there that we see day in and day out. So this team's got a great presentation on some things they saw. I'll turn it over to Christy.
Right, so I'm going to go ahead and invite the team up. The process owner for this event was Tom Grable, and team leader was Drake Dennert. So I'm going to go ahead and let Tom proceed with the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Our event this week was about lockout, tagout, and two-valve shutout, and it's an RIE, of course. I'd like to introduce the folks that worked with us here. So, if you guys want to just introduce yourselves.
I'm Leonard Marquez.
Dan Westner.
Drake Dennert.
Al Crouch.
Steve Lovato.
And we got a couple folks that weren't here, so Gabe Lombardi, who's not here, and either is Ed Romero. So I'd like to say special thanks to the metal shop. They kind of went above this week. They created a couple of lockout devices for the valve boxes. They fabricated them and got them all going for us so we could try out and win with our experiments. And many of the other folks that came down and helped us out, IT, working with the crews, doing experiments. So I'd just like to say thanks to them. Now, before we get started on the lockout, tagout, and two-valve procedure, we're going to kind of run over exactly what that means because I think most people don't understand that. Want to tell a story about what happened and what kind of has been driving this. So, a few years ago, I got a phone call from a district supervisor. He needed me to go out and relieve him. So he's telling me this horrific story on the phone. So I go, yeah, okay, I'm out right away. So I get out there, and doesn't look bad at all. You know, everything's all backfilled, everything's looking pretty good. It's kind of hard to determine exactly what happened. But as I'm walking down the street and you get a couple hundred yards away, you can see where the water's running really bad. You got pieces of clothing all over the place. You got rubber boots that have been torn in half. You got underwear that the guy was wearing. His whole clothing was just ripped off. So then the story started becoming real. All that, you know, there was an investigation, and all this could have been prevented if a few things were done. But one of the things that come to mind on me when we're working on this event, had we done lockout, tagout, and done two-valve shutout properly, that would have avoided it, even with all the other mistakes. So we focused, and the team focused this week on just not 80, 90%. We're trying to hit 100% every time so that everybody can go home safe. Now, wasn't so bad. That wasn't the worst part, was going out there and seeing all this stuff that happened afterwards. And it wasn't going to the funeral and seeing grown men cry. The worst part for me was going to the house with the family. And when you're talking to them, kids come up to you, and then you're realizing that these kids are never going to have a dad again. And if there's something that we can do to prevent that, then that should be our first primary thing. So that's kind of why this is kind of dear to me, and I want to make sure that everybody understands the importance of this. And it still goes back to, if those two things were done right, no matter what other mistakes were made, that would have prevented it. So I want to talk about the two-valve shutout and the lockout, tagout. We combined both procedures. We didn't change any of the procedures. They go hand in hand as the people are doing the work. So where the box is right there, the red box, that's just demonstrating where they're going to work. So then we call the first valve would be primary valve. Yeah, I got to find my little pen here. Obviously, I'm not a professional speaker. So this will be your first valve going this direction. This will be your first valve coming this direction. So that's the primary valves or the first valve. What we want to do is go to a 2-valve shutout. So you got this valve, and this valve on this side, and you got this valve right here on this side, and you isolate it. So as the crews are going around, they do a 1-valve shutout, and there's some scenarios in there that you can get by with a 1-valve shutout, but we always want to do a 2 if at all possible. One of the things that allow you to do just a single, it's actually 2 easy steps. One, the footage from this valve to the open excavation has to be a certain footage, and that's based on the size of the pipe. So you got 6 inches like 35, 8 inches like 61, that kind of thing. Because it's all due to force. So as the pipe increases or the pressure increases, the distance has to increase. If they're too close to that, then it don't matter who we put out, because the valve can blow off or the pipe can separate. If it is with longer than that distance, then the pipe itself that's in the ground will keep that valve from coming off, so it's safe for the employee to work. So when they're going out there and they're shutting these valves, that's where the lockout tagout comes into effect. Now they got devices that are not true locks. They got the plugs and some other things. And yeah, that'll tell another employee that's coming out there and maybe they're doing a main break somewhere else, because a lot of times we'll have 2 main breaks if a PRV sticks. So we'll have 2 different crews. It keeps people with the plug, gives them the idea that somebody shouldn't shut that valve or operate that valve. Same with the tags. They're more like a communication piece. The locks actually prevent anybody else except for the crew. And that's our whole intent. It's one lock for all those that are locked out. That lock or that key is actually put in the lock box. Everybody puts their tags on the lock box. They actually put zip ties in locks. Nobody can open that lock box and get that key to unlock them valves. That's what gives us the 100%. So, is everybody pretty good with that on the 2-valve shutout and lockout and how they work together? Okay.
Okay, the reason for action, the lockout, tagout, and 2-valve shutout policies exist, but are not followed 100% of the time. Valves can be inadvertently opened because they are not physically locked out, just tagged. When valves are being reopened during work projects, this can endanger the safety of others. So what we're aiming for is for all employees to understand and adhere to the current policies and procedures for lockout, tagout, and 2-valve shutout 100% of the time. So the scope of our event was for all water shutouts being performed by Denver Water personnel. That's what we discussed in this event.
Our current state right now, it's inconsistent. Some are performing lockout, tagout, some are not. And some of the processes that we're doing right now for lockout, tagout, using the incorrect information that's being placed on the assets. Current method of lockout, tagout is not understood by everybody at Denver Water. Lockout, tagout forms are not being utilized. Communication is poor, and like I said, some personnel, they don't know how to use the lockout, tagout methods that we want to utilize. Our target state is 100% policy compliance. We're going to have clear information transferred from responsible party to responsible party, meaning if a crew's on site working and another crew shows up to relieve them, all that information is going to be transferred to the relief crew. We'll have a safer work environment. Everyone is going to be properly trained. And the buy-in, we want rational acceptance from everybody. Could take a little bit, but I think it's going to be accepted. We've already ran the process through a T&D crew, and they grabbed on and accepted it really well and implemented that very well. All crews and personnel will have a lockout, tagout, material and tools and information provided to them. We will provide 2-valve shutouts wherever we can. After all processes are completed, we will do a follow-up valve survey to ensure that all valves that were operated for that certain process or activity are reopened or placed back into the correct position.
All right, so Dan was talking about, we did an experiment where we went out, we got Ed Romero's crew and with Gabe Lombardi, and we went out in the field, and after we started working on the SOP and we discussed how we wanted this to work, we went out to see how it worked. And we went through the crew, and we used kind of a 3-phase approach. We went out to one job site, and we kind of just walked them through and talked about it, talked about the policy, and did some training and education. And then we went out to another job site and let them do it. And like Dan said, they did so well at Grassland, we didn't go to the third. We were, do one, see one, teach one. We saw by the second time that they had it. And we just went out, had them do the 2-valve shutout, identify what valves needed to be shut. We actually used the lockout tagouts in devices, and they got it. And I think they had great buy-in. They understood the rationale. This was about them. It's not about us saying we want more procedures and more paperwork and stuff like that. This is about them being safe when they're working. Next slide. So we went through this, and I'll try to hold this up, Dave, for you and talk at the same time. We use several different devices. This is it's commonly known as a debris cap, but this one allows it to be locked. These are plastic. We've used them before. The group felt later on that these weren't as durable, so we didn't like this. We had the metal shop. We don't have that one with us right now. We had the metal shop fabricate something to see how that was going to work, and we ultimately ended up with this device. And I got 2 valve stems here, covers. But this is our new device that we came, that the group likes. It's pretty simple, and it goes in quick. It's spring-loaded. You can put it in the valve within seconds. It goes on like that. You can see from the picture, the first phase. This cover goes on. Then we have the lock, and it locks real quick. It adjusts to the different sizes. Not all these are the same, the inner diameters. And there it is. Nice and quick and easy. This is their current version. It currently will not work in the smaller diameter. They're working with their engineers for us right now to get one manufactured that will work for both devices. That will save us from having to buy 2. Because our kits, we're going to have, we just determined we needed 14. So that way we wouldn't have to have doubles. So they're working on that. They also, another device, this is a styrofoam plug. This is what some people or some crews used before. This would just go in there. It was more a physical or a visual deterrent, but didn't actually lock, like the new one. These are called the pizza box. And they use a special key, but we wanted to go one step further. If we're going to do this, we wanted to do it right. We wanted to use a group lockout. The metal shop fabricated this little clasp for us, so we'd be able to put a lock on that. That's for the manhole covers when we're dealing with the conduits and everything. So we think we've covered every scenario, and we'll be able to lock them. Next slide. And we're going to use the group lockbox theory, where on all the valves you'll have a group key, and they're all keyed the same for that particular kit we're going to use. And then they'll come back to the group lockbox, which will be at the man truck or somewhere on the job. And it will have the foreman's lock on it, or the supervisor's lock, and all the crew members will zip tie their locks to it, or zip tie their tags to it. And inside this is the key to the group locks to all these valves. So that way, when they're working, they know these cannot be opened. The key's locked up. All these tags and this lock would have to be removed before they could actually go and do it.
So we have a metric of 10 safety items, but to tell you the truth, there is really one safety item. As Tom mentioned, this is all about keeping our guys in the field safe. So that was the entire idea of this event, is safety. We did come up with all these all these separate items, but I do want to stress that that was our number one metric here. And who does this affect? It's going to affect our water distribution guys, obviously. It's going to keep them safe. We're going to have less potential for interaction between more than one crew working in the same area. For our customers, the idea is that we're not only shutting the valves, but we are coming back and we're making sure that they get reopened appropriately. So that prevents water quality problems. The other thing that it does in regards to fire flow is we find that we have closed valves, it can make a substantial difference in the available fire flow, and whether that is to the fire department as they're operating hydrants or to individual fire line and fire sprinklers in buildings, it can make a really big difference. So by making sure that we're getting these things back on after we're done, we're making sure that that water is flowing out there.
So what do we have to do that we have left to do here? Obviously, the training with all the crews is going to take a lot of time. I think we have 17 different crews we have to train. And Drabel, which is Drake and Grable, obviously. I don't know who came up with that. Yeah. Anyway, that'll be completed by the end of June of this year. We have to order a lot of devices and equipment. Drabel, again, will handle that, mainly probably the dray. And that should be starting to order by the end of next week. Kits, we need to build kits and get them to all the crews. You've already seen this, but basically all these devices here are in a kit. Like Drake said before, there'll be 14 different locking devices for the valve boxes. Dan's group, they're going to handle the conduits and big shutouts on that. They have manholes, so they'll have those pizza pans retrofitted, and they'll have those when they isolate and lock out, tag out on those. I guess that handles it. Dan's going to have those retrofitted through the metal shop by the end of next week, get that going. Our metrics, so here we go. Lockout, tagout, compliance goal. Right now, basically, a small percentage of crews are doing it. Dan's group, when they do conduits, I think we focused a lot on lockout, tagout on conduits and not all water distribution mains. I think that's what this is all about here now, that we all are in compliance. So we want that target to be 100%, and that'll be tracked over time through the RIE group. Safety improvements, initially 0. We added 10 different safety targets. Number of valves in wrong position. We have about 10% when mainly scheduled work, main breaks, different things like that we find aren't opened after the job's completed. And our target is to have 0. Everything will be reopened, and that'll be determined over time too by the RIE group. 2 valve shutout compliance goal. kind of goes hand in hand with the first one. Just the conduit crews are in compliance right now, and we want that target to be 100% for all Denver Water personnel. Same thing, that'll be tracked by the RE people too. So I'm gonna hand it over to Tom, and he can conclude the event.
So what do we learn? Well, first one that grabs my mind is Gabe is not so funny as he thinks. I have a feeling that Drabel thing's going to stick. But, you know, no joking aside here, you know, everybody can improve on communication, and we do a proper lockout, tagout procedures, what a lot of us learned in this event. You know, how do we feel? These are just some of the things. We accomplished our mission this week. The way I feel about it, these guys could have took the easy route and done the plugs. I mean, they don't fit really in the right heights, but you can shave them down easily. But going above and beyond and trying to get that lockout device on there took some effort. And we got some pushback on that as to, well, it's 90% good. It's like, no, 100% is where we should be. And I think we have the support for that now as well. Yeah, it's going to take a little longer for the crews, but we should be doing that. What kind of values did we initiate this week? Don't give up under difficult conditions, and strive to provide a safe place for employees to work is our ultimate goal this week, really. So if you guys got any questions, feel free to ask.
Will the two-valve shutout process affect our service interruption statistics? It looks to me like you're shutting 3 segments of line rather than 1, and that it might severely affect that statistic, and we'd have to take that into account.
The question is, will doing the two-valve shutout affect the additional customers by us shutting out more people or more blocks? Yes. More people will be affected. When you follow the procedure, you don't always have to do a two-valve shutout. So if you go to the primary valve and then you do this step process, you go to the second valve. If there's a service in between the first valve and the second valve, then you go to phase 2 or step 2. And what that tells you is the first valve, is it far enough away to where an employee can work in the excavation? If it is, then we just do a 1-valve shutout of that and we don't back it up. So it's going to be different on each case in each direction on the shutout, but that will cut down quite a few. If it's within that distance, no, they got to get out. No, they got to be turned off. So yeah, it will affect it. Okay, the question was to just kind of go through the end process on the lockout tagout and how do we reopen the valves and stuff like that. So once the crew completes the work, all the tags, the single key still in the lockbox with the form, and they have all individual locks on the red box. So they group back together, they cut the locks off, or they remove the zip ties and the lock. They reach in to get the key. The key allows them to now go open up all the other valves in the system. There's only one key for them 14 isolating devices that we got, lockout devices. So then they'll go ahead and do that, unlock it, open the valve up, and they'll have to do all the other. Then they come back and they put them back in the lockbox just to store them. Yeah, so we created a form on that, and we got 20 places for valves to be listed, which would be a huge shutout. Sometimes we do get into that many. So you got where the valve is located at, and then you got the position, either it's off or on, and then we even counted for CBVs, which are normally to remain shut. But a crew should, when they go out there to do a isolation, they should verify that that CBV is closed. Just because the map shows it's closed doesn't mean it's closed. We found open CVBs before. We find them quite often, actually. So then they just mark it, check it, and that's how we kind of are going to try to capture that metric where we opened up every valve that we shut. And then if we have a crew transfer, the two supervisors sit down and they look at the form, so they both know what's going on. They switch equipment because we don't want to switch locks, so we just switch bags. Really, is what we're doing. And one key factor on this, on the policy, is that every employee that's working has the right to challenge that. So if they don't believe that that lockout, tagout was done right, or the valve shut down, or the isolation, they have the right to challenge that, and they have the right to go and visually inspect every single one, if they choose. So I think it's a good thing on that. No, actually, that the question was the this device right here. Did the metal shop come up with that one? No, that's actually a manufacturer that came up with that from Vegas. Oh no, they came up with a. I wish we'd have brought it in. It was kind of a cool device. It was kind of like a 3-arm puller that kind of goes down and then spreads out. And then it just got a little screw top on the top. But yeah, they worked pretty hard on it. They were working on another one, and when this one finally came in, we had to ship it and get it here overnight, and it finally came in. And the company doesn't really know that we have these two different size boxes, so these ride heights really kill us on the diameter because they're really smaller. And these are what we use on all our paving projects. So they go and they bust these out, go ahead and pave, then they come back and dig it in, and then they drop that inside of that. And that's why we call them ride heights. They give the right height. So. David.
How easy or hard is it on a site-by-site basis to figure out I need to do 2 valves or I need to do 1 valve?
Okay, the question was how hard is it to figure out how to be in compliance with the 2-valve shutout and know that it's either a 1 valve or a 2 valve? Because the name itself kind of implies that you do a 2 valve all the time. So if you follow the steps, we went out there and we trained the crew on one shutout. And by the time we got done with that, I felt they had a pretty good grasp of it. We went to another whole job site way across town. Went to a totally different, these are real shutouts that we're going to have to do. So we didn't want to just pull one off a map. By the time they went to the second shutout, they did it. And they did it almost 100% correct. The third one, they would have gotten it. Fourth one, it's just repetition. The question was, is it basically just math that determines whether or not you got the right distance from the excavation to the first valve? Yeah, the numbers come up from that. It's all about force, right? So, but we went a step further, so we made a cheat sheet. So the foremen don't have to do any of the math. None of the employees have to do. All they got to do is say, I got a 6-inch here. It's 35 feet. I got an 8-inch, it's 61 feet. And actually on the first example that we went out on, when you can do this in EMAP and you can tell the distances in EMAP, but that's not totally accurate. So EMAP showed 66 feet. So we was explaining to the crew that that's not very accurate, and since we was on site, we went ahead and measured it, and it came out to 57. It kind of just depends on where you click the mouse at and then you drag, and how much you got it blowed up. So what we wanted to stress to them is if it says 61 feet, we're considered safe. 60 feet, we're not. You back it up. There's no chances on that. Patty.
This may in fact increase the outage hours if
it's really hard to describe how emotional it was. So, I mean, it's something that could have been prevented if we'd just known ahead of time stuff. Well, the cost of it's going to be about 35 grand for all the devices. And the way we're going to roll the training out, just in case anybody is interested, is we're going to work crew by crew so that everybody on the crew understands it. And we'll do it multiple times. You know, if they only say about the 1, 2, 3 method, we'll do it as many times as we have to so it really drives in, so they can demonstrate that they're competent at doing this. Then once they're competent at doing that, then the accountability piece is going to be held. There has to be an accountability piece to this. That'll be followed up with inspections. So they'll be trained to pass an inspection, and then they're going to be required to pass the inspection. So we think we're doing it fair. And one thing we stress in the training is if you have to plan ahead just to do the shutout anyway. So if you do run into one of these situations where you just can't figure it out, call somebody. You know, and if you can't lock out a device, maybe these devices that we got didn't work for everything out there. Call somebody, make a note on it, say, hey, you know, this device didn't work in this weird box that we inherited from Littleton or something, you know. That way we know. So it's not a matter about getting people in trouble. It's about making sure that we stress how critical this is that they perform these steps.
I'd like to clarify my question.
Okay.
Safety first, no question about that. But my point is, we may see a bump in our outages, and we want to understand that, and it's a fair price to pay for the additional safety. Absolutely no question that you're trying to do the right thing. But we got to understand the statistics in this, I mean, we may get a bump. That's fine.
I think that'll be probably communicated with Tom and Julie and everybody that takes care of those metrics. I guess we could keep track of exactly how many additional people were put in, but it'd be kind of hard to do with all the different crews out there that we got. Okay. So, any?
You guys did a great job. Glad you followed clients the way you had the things people should go. We've been using it for a long time. We're not big reservoir for years this way. We get into more complex ones. I really understand that it just doesn't deal with just water though. Now, we're talking electrical, air, all that stuff. And so it's great to see you guys are going forward the way it is. It's way out for
Okay, what Joel was saying is that, you know, he wanted to thank us, but the biggest thing is that, you know, this is just one form of energy, you know, the water aspect of it. There's several other forms out there that other groups have to deal with for sure. And sometimes, well, in Joel's case, a lot of times that's multiple energies. So they have to lock out electric, control devices, plus water. And, you know, that program has to incorporate all that. Our form in the way we're training, since we only deal with water, is very specific to water for the T&D side and the water distribution side. And there were some hurdles that this team did that got to commend them for, because when emergency service goes out there and shuts down the main, we decided that that should be a special conditions tag because there's nobody in harm's way at that point. But those special condition tags got to be pulled out and put locks in by the T&D group because they're actually going to put people in harm's way. So there's multiple things going on here.
Any last questions for the team? No? All right. Oh, Tom.
Yeah, just thank the team here. You guys did a really, really, really good job of getting into an issue, and I think, Tom, you had said it could have been, you could have jumped in and made it really easy and said 2-valve shutoff no matter what. You know, we're going to just stop at the easiest plug that we could find, but you guys really tried to find balance there. How can we get it as safe as it really needs to be? And that's a threshold, and you get there, and then you work yourself down towards, you know, do we have to have 2 valves, or do we have enough cover on there to get the proper restraint length? So you go through a logical process that gets you to the right answer, And I love the fact that it's now standard work, so everybody's got to do it. It's very visually managed, and we know we're going to get them back because then all the valves will come back in service. We're going to get a service bump here by 10% of the valves not being out of service. So you guys found really good stuff. It's a really good balanced metric approach to making it safer, better for our customers, and we'll see that metric go up a little bit. It's not going to be a ton, but that'll give us more incentive to go and find other ways. How can we? There's other ways we can reduce that total customer outage metric. So we'll keep working on that from a continuous improvement aspect. But this is a really good job of. You guys did a lot of things and used all the CI tools to do it. So thank you.
We don't have any 30, 60, 90-day report outs today, so everybody have a fabulous weekend. Thank you.